This week, Michael Douglas races against time to solve a mystery and save his family in Don't Say a Word.
High school football is much more than a game in Go Tigers.
And supermodels Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson face off on the runway in Zoolander.
Who is this? We have your daughter.
Daddy?
Jesse, are you okay, sweetie?
Honey, they hurt you.
Michael Douglas and his injured wife, Famke Janssen, discover their daughter has been kidnapped in Don't Say a Word, one of 4 new movies this week. Plus, we review the DVD premieres of 3 of the greatest movies of all time. I'm Richard Roeper.
And I'm Roger Ebert. Don't Say a Word is another one of those Michael Douglas fatal basic instinct attraction discovery disclosure thrillers where he starts out as a rich professional and ends up as a mad dog. Nobody does it better. This time he's a psychiatrist who's given 8 hours by his daughter's kidnappers to perform some high-pressure last-minute analysis on a mental patient whose subconscious holds the clue to a missing fortune. Oliver Platt is his hospital colleague.
Seeing her father die, that was ground zero. So, 20 different hospitalizations, 20 different diagnoses, all overlay.
The mental patient, traumatized in childhood by the same man who kidnapped Douglas's daughter, is convincingly played by Brittany Murphy.
You want what they want.
What, who wants?
Jennifer Esposito was a police detective who was briefed by Victor Argo about a floater, and later intuits this case and the kidnapping are linked.
Another body was found. Battery Park area?
Yeah, victim was Mal, middle-aged, day before yesterday.
Right, I'm gonna need preliminary findings by tonight.
Don't Say a Word was directed by Gary Fleeter, whose previous movie, Kiss the Girls, is one of the best of recent thrillers. This one has the same atmospheric style and the contrast between the warm domestic scenes and the cold, creepy action scenes, but it's a case of plot overload. The last act of the movie intercuts between 4 plots, and although there's great traffic coordination to get them all to end up in the same place at the same time, the contrivance undermines the characters. It turns them from people into pawns. Don't Say a Word is a good-looking movie and not a boring one, but it's a near miss.
Oh, I thought it was a huge disappointment. You're so right about Michael Douglas. I love movies that started off with him having the loving wife and the cute baby and the little girl in this case.
Perfect.
And he's walking around that beautiful New York $1 million apartment, and you just know by the end of the movie he's going to be beating up the bad guys and jumping off of cars and all that great stuff. Yeah. But this started off so well and so interesting, and then just, you know, it's just like we've seen this so many times before with the bad guy chasing him, and then of course you think the guy's dead and he's not dead and all this stuff. And I was really...
Yeah, but there is a certain amount of visual style involved in how the bad guy meets his eventual destiny. I love the way that kind of happens.
That's great. It looks good, but but the Brittany Murphy character, I thought what we're going to see is her and Michael Douglas really squaring off, you know, as in an intellectual and psychological battle. And instead, I mean, there are just changes in characters that come out of nowhere.
She seems to be able to switch back and forth from insane to sane at will.
Yeah.
You know, at one point she needs to be in a straitjacket, the next moment she's helping him out.
And I like Jennifer Esposito a lot, but she looks like she's in a different movie. All of a sudden, she's solving things like that when she needs to. So, as I said, I think it was really
brings a new meaning to the phrase arriving in the nick of time.
Exactly. Okay, our next movie is Liam from the gifted Stephen Frears, who has directed such piercing triumphs as Dangerous Liaisons and The Grifters. But this, I thought, was a heavy-handed story about an 8-year-old boy struggling to understand life in the poverty-stricken Liverpool of the 1930s. Not only is little Liam poor, cold, hungry, and sexually confused, he's got a wicked stutter on top of all that that renders him nearly speechless when he's agitated. First-time actor Anthony Barrows plays the admittedly cute urchin.
Look at her. Look at her. You've seen this poor woman struggle to kit you out for your first Holy Communion. And because of your thoughtlessness and your selfishness, all her efforts have been wasted. Are you not ashamed?
The talented Ian Hart plays Liam's dad.
What's this?
A few hours ago, it was your tea. If I'd known, I took it to the alehouse and put it over your head.
You haven't sold it, have you?
Told me what?
The yard's closed.
Unemployment very quickly turns Liam's dad into a bitter husband and father and a raging anti-Semite.
We're skins. We can't pay you because we're skins. We've got no money. We are skins. Can't you understand that, you Jewish bastard?
When Liam's father joins a group of local fascists, the plot collapses under an unconvincing and melodramatic coincidence. But Liam really lost me well before that. First of all, the kid is kind of creepy. He's hovering over his teenage sister's sleeping form. He's bursting in on his mother while she's bathing, and he screams at a neighbor woman in a disturbing scene. And the Catholic bashing here is relentless and quite broad. The priest and the catechism teacher aren't just rigid, they're sadistic. I don't think the worldwide cinema treats any other faith with such regular contempt. It's lazy, and I think it's unfair, and it's certainly unoriginal.
I couldn't disagree with you more. This is a wonderful film, and it treats Catholicism in a way that was very familiar to me as a graduate of Catholic schools, and they're not sadistic at all. They're just trying to give you the fear of hell. You know, also, the movie is not about the kid, it's about the father, played by Ian Hart, and that is a wonderful performance, and you see how racism and economic deprivation are pushing him toward fascism and toward anti-Semitism. You see the mechanism of that process.
Well, first of all, the movie's called Liam, and it's told from Liam's point of view, so I think it's as much about him as any of the other characters. And, you know, I went to Catholic school as well, Roger, and I have my problems with the, you know, the rigid nature of some of the teachings, but this went way over the top of this. This was like a Monty Python
The whole story about how long the fires of hell will burn is right out of James Joyce.
I mean, these people were abusing these children. And as far as the father, I just thought his arc was so quick, you know. He starts off, he's a loving guy, it's New Year's Eve, they're going to have this wonderful time. He loses his job, and he hates the Jews, and he hates the Irish, and he hates his wife, and he hates his kid. If you have lost your job for a long time in that society with no safety net underneath you, you lose your self-esteem very quickly. He turned this way in one day. It wasn't over a long period of time. He turned into this character.
I think you're steering people away from a wonderful film.
I don't think it's a wonderful film at all. So I'm not steering people away from what I think is a wonderful film. What you think is a wonderful film.
Okay. Coming up later in the show, Ben Stiller plays a moronic male model in Zoolander. And coming up next, Go Tigers, about a town obsessed with high school football.
Welcome to Paul Brown Tiger Stadium, where the Massillon Tigers take on the Akron Buckle Griffins in their season opener.
Massillon, Ohio claims to be the #1 high school football town in the country. I don't know if it is or not, but since it is the only high school team followed by the Vegas odds makers, it might very well be. Go Tigers is a documentary made by Ken Carlson, a Massillon native, about his football-crazy hometown, where Tiger fans are enlisted at birth.
How much does this little Tiger weigh now?
7'1", and he was 19 3/4 inches.
Oh boy, that's you'd make a good wide receiver.
And we're on the day of the big game. The high school band is licensed to march anywhere, anytime. The movie follows the three co-captains, and there's a crisis when quarterback Dave Irwin, an ace passer, injures his throwing finger.
First thing that came to my mind was football. You know, McKinley game coming up. I was thinking, man, I might be done. At first, I thought I was going to lose my finger.
The movie is basically in favor of football, but does question the local practice of making good players repeat the 8th grade so they'll be bigger and stronger as seniors.
That we all were held back just to play football, as all was.
They know that the school is looking forward to them, having them play in the orange and black, and they know that the reason they're not going to high school that year so they can be bigger, they can be stronger, and when they're a senior in high school, it will help.
Go Tigers follows a season that coincides with a crucial tax levy. Some voters say taxes would be lower without that expensive football program, but the movie argues that Massillon High School football pays its own way. It certainly seems to unify Massillon, a steel town with amazing civic spirit and apparently a high level of racial harmony. It would be easy to criticize the town's overemphasis on sports, but the movie's buried message is that football enhances local lives in many different ways not obviously related to the team, and that Massillon would be lost without it.
I thought this was a wonderful film. I think documentary is always a term that scares people. I'm going to start calling things reality movies. Maybe they'd go see this because this has got everything. And it's not just an infomercial for the Massillon football team. We see these kids getting drunk at parties and even throwing up at these parties. We mentioned about the kids getting held back, which is probably the most disturbing thing. You see how they get advantages in school, how one of the stars has a criminal past that kind of takes you out of the movie for a second. You're really jarred by that. So it shows that side of it. And just the access is amazing on this movie, and the people are so comfortable talking to this guy, I think, because he's one of them, although I'm not sure if he's welcome back there because he does show it warts and all.
You know, one thing I noticed reading the credits kind of carefully, some of the footage was shot by the players themselves.
Yeah, and their parents, I believe.
There were cinematography credits, and they were probably given little handheld cameras, and you get moments that you couldn't really get if you walked in with an outside crew. Moments of revelation and intimacy, and at the same time, I think it would be fun to be a Maslin if you were a football fan. If you weren't a football fan, you might have to subscribe to the Book of the Month Club.
But they do a great job. They interview like the nerd kids and the heavy metal guy with his T-shirt, and you realize a lot of these kids will be the bosses of those football players 10 years from now. But those kids are really funny, so there's a lot of insight in this movie.
Okay, coming up next, Ben Stiller, who's been on a few covers himself, lampoons male models in Zoolander.
And looking ahead to next week's openings, John Cusack pursues Kate Beckinsale in Serendipity.
Well, I guess the look I'm best known for is blue steel.
What's that look like?
Ben Stiller is a vainglorious dimwit in Zoolander, a would-be spoof that was probably doomed because of its subject, male modeling. I mean, what is there to parody? Is Fabio already not a caricature? But if you're determined to plunder this topic, at least give us something more inspired than dumb peacock jokes and homoerotic montages. And the idea of lampooning spy movies is hardly original either. Stiller directs himself in this flat farce, and he hammers almost every scene into the ground, as when evil fashion designer Mugatu tries to win over Zoolander by naming a learning center after him.
What is this?
A center for ants? What?
How can we be expected to teach children to learn how to read if they can't even fit inside the building?
And that, of course, is Will Ferrell as Mugatu. On the plus side, Owen Wilson has some funny moments as Zoolander's empty-headed rival, Hansel. We get a lot of cameos in this movie from the likes of Winona Ryder, Natalie Portman, and Cuba Gooding Jr., among others, but they really don't yield very many laughs. When Zoolander quits the business, he goes home to his father, played by Jon Voight.
I thought maybe I could work the mines with you guys. You know, all the Zoolander men together again, like when we were kids.
Times have changed, boy. You wouldn't last one day down those coal pits.
Can't you even pretend to be happy to see me, Pop?
Damn it, Derek, I'm a coal miner, not a professional film and television actor.
Zoolander isn't as horrid as all those crummy comedies we endured last spring and summer, but it's actually more disappointing because Stiller and the cast are wasting their considerable talents. They're capable of producing something hilarious on the order of the Austin Powers movies, but all they do is demonstrate how difficult it is to score a comedic touchdown. And I didn't get all the reliance on songs from the 80s like Beat It, Relax, and Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. It's almost as if Stiller is admitting this material is tired.
I agree with everything you say, except I did think that the scene where he knocks over the scale model was funny. So I'll go on record about that, but there's something else in this movie.
But you know, can I just say, the Roger, when he knocked over the scale model, that is funny, but then they went on with it where he had to prove why he knocked it down. You know what I mean? They
well, some of his lines I laughed at, but there's something in this movie that bothered me. There's a plot here about assassinating the Prime Minister of Malaysia because of his opposition to child labor.
Right.
Because the theory is the fashion industry depends on child labor in Southeast Asia in order to finance itself. And, you know, Malaysia is a real country, and it has a Prime Minister, and they're allegedly an ally of ours. Didn't anybody at the studio, didn't anyone say, can't we make up a fake country here?
No, because they didn't care about the people of Malaysia or the Prime Minister.
Between that and the fact that the movie falls flat, I think it's...
And I'm tired of comedies that bring in all these celebrities where we just go, wow, that's Donald Trump, wow, that's Winona Ryder, but they're not funny. They don't do anything funny.
Wow, that's Donald Trump again.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming up next, a special expanded video spotlight, 3 new DVDs every collector is going to want. Three of the greatest movies ever made have their DVD premieres this week, and let's start our video spotlight with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which in 1937 became the first full-length color animated feature in history. The DVD begins with a flawless restoration of the film itself. Then it adds an audio commentary by, who do you think? Walt Disney himself, and an audio track compiled from the many, many hours he spent talking about this movie.
Oh, there's quite a bit of controversy on whether I should call them dopey. They said, oh, that's too modern a word and things. We found out that Shakespeare used that.
The bonus features on these 2 discs would take the rest of the show to list. A documentary about the making of the film, video games, radio broadcasts, newsreel footage, and a music video made just for this disc of Barbra Streisand singing Someday My Prince Will Come. Here are the seven dwarfs in a scene that was cut from the movie.
She can stay till we get our gooseberry pie. Then she goes.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is the jewel in Disney's crown, and in terms of its bells and whistles, I gotta say, this is the most impressive DVD I've ever seen.
Now, The Godfather is the most popular family saga in motion picture history, and the 5-disc DVD collection is sure to be a major hit when it reaches stores on October 9th. 4 discs contain the films in their theatrical releases with commentary from Francis Ford Coppola.
That whole role of Frankie Pangelini was written, of course, for Clemenza, and it was a spectacular performance of Michael Vigazzo, who played him, but it's also sort of heartbreaking that Richie Castellano didn't get to do the logical thing and play that part.
The 5th disc has 3 hours of bells and whistles. In one segment, Coppola shows off his personal notebook and talks about the changes he made while crafting the saga. And in the behind-the-scenes chapter, we see home movie-style footage of the wedding scene from Godfather 1. Most of the additional scenes here have been seen before in the chronologically rearranged TV miniseries from 1977 titled The Godfather Saga and in a VHS edition that came out in the early 80s. But here we get text explaining why the scenes were deleted. And no matter what the context, it's great to see relatively obscure material like this scene set in 1958 when the daughter of the late Sonny Corleone asked Michael for permission to get engaged.
What do you study then?
Fine arts.
How do you plan to support your new wife on fine arts?
I've seen the first 2 Godfather films at least a dozen times, but this DVD package makes me want to watch the entire saga all over again.
The third great film that's new on DVD is often voted the greatest film of all time, and that would be Citizen Kane, directed in 1941 by Orson Welles and based on the life of media mogul William Randolph Hearst.
I have money and property. If I don't look after the interests of the underprivileged, maybe somebody else will.
And the 2-disc set also includes the Oscar-nominated documentary The Battle Over Citizen Kane from 1996, which includes Orson Welles' rueful admission that Kane was the high point of his life.
It's about 2% movie making and 98% hustling. It's no way to spend a life.
There are 2 shot-by-shot commentary tracks on the DVD, one by director Peter Bogdanovich, a close friend of Welles.
Despite all the different views of Xanadu that we're getting here, the one window that we're getting closer and closer to stays pretty much in the same position.
And I did the other commentary track. I've gone through Citizen Kane a shot at a time with dozens of audiences, and this was a chance to record many of our observations and discoveries as we looked at it under a microscope. Is Citizen Kane the greatest film ever made? I think so. And unlike some movies that don't stand up to repeated viewings, this one gets better and better the more you watch it.
And I enjoyed your commentary. I watched the whole film with your commentary the other evening and enjoyed it immensely. I love all the bells and whistles on these things, Roger, but the most important thing, as you mentioned, is that we get DVD quality picture on Snow White, the Godfather movies, and Citizen Kane. Sometimes when these movies show up on TV or even on VHS, they're kind of washed out. They're so clear and pristine
These
here.
movies look great. When we come back, the movie Answer Man tells Hollywood what to do about scenes that show the World Trade Center. The movie Answer Man has heard from Troy-Lene Ladner of New Jersey, who asks if it's true that digital technology was used in Zoolander to erase shots of the World Trade Center. Yes, it sure is true. And Hollywood is trying to decide right now what to do about other movies that show New York's famous landmarks. A lot of movies like Working Girl start with a shot of the famous skyline. The 1976 remake of King Kong uses the towers for a crucial scene. And Woody Allen's Manhattan even employs the towers as part of its title typography. The World Trade Center towers are an ineradicable part of the history and folklore of New York City, and to erase them from the memory of the movies, as Zoolander does, would be like confirming the destruction of the terrorists. I say let the towers stand in all of their glory in the movies, and when the story calls for it, use digital technology not to remove them, but to put them back again.
Okay, recapping this week's movies, 2 thumbs down for Don't Say a Word, a split decision on Liam, 2 thumbs up for Go Tigers, and finally 2 thumbs down for Zoolander.
Remember, you can hear our reviews at Ebert-Roeper-movies.com, and read us in print at suntimes.com. Next week, we'll be back with Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke in Training Day, and until then, the balcony is closed.
It's so disappointing when Michael Douglas is in a movie like this because you really look forward to the big event pictures. He can tap into the psyche so many times with movies like Wall Street and Fatal Attraction, but this one really doesn't work.
You know, it's also a shame that more people don't see him in the little movies, the movies where he shows what a good actor he is.
Mm-hmm. A house is not a home until it's safe. The Brinks home security system, just $99 installed. Call 1-800-GO-BRINKS.
Facts of Life by Lysol. Fact, pick up toys and you could pick up something else.
My tummy hurts.
Fact, Lysol kills rotavirus, the stomach bug. Life demands Lysol. That's a fact.
Conair gives you instant heat in a setter. 2 minutes and you're ready to roll. Get volume, curls, or waves. 2 minutes. The Conair Instant Heat Hair Setter.
Rent the greatest thrills and chills just in time for Halloween. Check out Richard Roper's picks for the top scary movies available at your neighborhood Blockbuster store. Blockbuster, bringing entertainment home.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is brought to you by...
Regular oil changes make a big difference. Get one at Meineke, and they'll throw in free wiper blades.
At Meineke, you won't pay a lot, but you'll get a lot.